It's, it's sounding really good. We'll have our next class rehearsal tomorrow night. Trombone. Good evening. If you could please make your way into the auditorium and take a seat. We do have a quorum present, at least in the hall, and shortly I hope we have one seated. Thank you. As we're waiting for folks to take their seats, I do have a couple of brief announcements from folks in the audience. Katie Kierlis from Big Blue Bargains. No, yes, no? Okay. Oh, there we go. Thank you very much.
Yes, you are. Sure. I'm not. We're all wearing. Hey, Katie. Hi. Oh, I'm wearing a sweater. I have one that's like that, similar, but it's white. And Abby's style. Stand back, yeah. She did catch it said golf. It said there was like a typo in there. True. Oh, no. What is it? It's alright. To highlight. I think it's fine. On here. No, it wasn't on the other thing. It's on this. Oh, okay, that's good. Well, I think it was in there twice. It was in there twice, so one was highlighted. Oh, okay. Well.
Ladies, the floor is yours, and I think the House will come to order for you.
I know. Hi, everyone. I'm Rachel Teradash, Katie Kierlis, Jody Hendry. We are three of the, I'm really loud already. We're three of the board members of Big Blue Bargains, and thank you. We wanted to speak briefly with you tonight, mostly to thank all of the customers and volunteers we've had. Big Blue Bargains is a local 501c3 nonprofit thrift store. We're currently operating out of the old Clark Portables on Norfolk Ave. Many of you know Big Blue Bargains was originally started by a group of dedicated parents in 2012 and operated out of the middle school until 2020. After a brief opening on Humphrey Street in 2023, we went to the town to ask for a new space. With the support of the select board, the school committee, and Max Casper, we were given our current location on Norfolk Ave back in January. We opened our doors to the public February 1st, 2025. In the 10 months since then, we've donated $22,969 back to the Swampscott community. Our organization is entirely volunteer-run and volunteer-led, and this community effort is truly what makes our work possible. To highlight some of our biggest donations so far, we gave $4,000 to the middle school PTO, $5,000 to sponsor the music and movement class for the preschool, $7,290 to Anchor Food Pantry, $3,887 to sponsor the Hometown Heroes banners this year. The handout you're given, if you grabbed one, highlights some of our other contributions to date. These are just our biggest ones. We wanted to give a special thanks to the Select Board and School Committee for our space, to Max for his ongoing assistance and expertise on all questions, Gino and the crews at the DPW for helping us keep our space maintained, Aaron Lamb, a town meeting member, and Eric Lindstrom of DL Services for their continued sponsorship of our software and internet, our volunteers for their limitless patience in sorting and displaying and keeping the store running, and our shoppers. Your support of Big Blue Bargains is what has enabled the $22,969 to be reinvested in our community. So thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, if any of you are plumbers or know a plumber, we'd love to talk to you too. We'll talk about you at the next town meeting. Yeah.
Thank you, ladies.
Thank you.
Thank you, ladies, and thank you for all you do. I do need to ask anyone who has not been sworn in since the last time they were elected or appointed, please come down and see the clerk. I have one more announcement. I'd like to recognize Mr. Dulett from the Public Access Educational Governmental TV channel and the Swampscott High School Audiovisual Department, and many other hats besides. Mr. Dulett.
Hi, thank you, moderator. First of all, I want to welcome everyone to the auditorium in its new state. I want to point out a few things that you may or may not notice yet. One is we've got a really nice bright projector so we can have this up and we keep the house lights on and everyone can be comfortable and you can see that. The other thing you might notice are the new acoustic treatment around the room. That's so that you can hear what everyone is saying, and we've had several events and we've had several concerts in here, and the sound quality is beautiful. In fact, people keep coming up and saying, it sounds like a venue in here, which is really exciting to hear because it is a venue now. I am meeting with Superintendent Kalishman this week. We're going to talk about how to bring acts in here, how to have musical acts, speaking acts as well. So we'll keep you posted on that. I want to just say, there'll be more to thank, but I want to thank Roger Talkov for helping design this room because he is a brilliant, generous alum and town meeting member, and without Roger, none of this really would be here. Had him in our court from the beginning. This whole sound system was designed by him and his team. The acoustic treatments designed by him and his team, or he brought in the experts to tell us how to really make this room shine. So Roger, thank you for everything. And if anyone wants a real run through of how this room works, if you want to look under the hood, let me know. It's fun to show off. I'm not showing off the lights today, but it's all brand new lights as well. That was through the money that was appropriated, as well as a grant from National Grid. So I encourage you guys to come to the events where these lights can really get shown off in their glory. And you might also notice there's no crew with cameras back there, so you guys all have really nice seats because part of this was also installing these robotic cameras, so there's a crew in the back kind of running this. So really a fantastic place, and we should be proud of ourselves, and as a community, this is a gem. So thank you guys. Thank you. To that end, there's 2 concerts coming up that you guys should come to hear this in all its glory. Number 1, Wednesday night, the Swampscott High School concert, chorus, jazz band, and there's an art show in the atrium. That's Wednesday night starting at 6 o'clock. And then on Sunday the 14th, the Blue Big Band, Swampscott's Community Jazz Orchestra, is playing Duke Ellington's Nutcracker Suite. It's a short show. It's about an hour max. Several town meeting members are in the band. It's a really fun show, so I encourage you guys to all come out. And who cares about the Patriots and the Bills, right? Come on down and listen to jazz. So thank you, Mr. Moderator. Appreciate it. Oh, and the microphones. You might notice. Can I do a little mic thing here? You still need to get close to the mic. You can't do this. You've got to get close to the mic, but we have changed these. There's these goose backs here, so you can just bend it. So that'll be easier. So bend it down and go around. All right. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Dulett. I can say, for my own sake, it's much easier to hear what's going on in here tonight, so I'm grateful. I'm also grateful that I get to cross off that mic technique pointer that he so helpfully saved me from. So I'm going to remind you once more, now that we have everyone in the room, if you have not been sworn in since your last election or since when you were appointed, please come see the clerk now. Finally, I want to make sure that if we do have visitors who are non-town meeting members, if you could sit in the back of the hall up in that section. If we have town staff over in this section, that will help during the voting. Finally, I hope everyone picked up the yellow-colored handout on the way in. If you didn't, please make your way out to that front table. That includes the change language for Article 10. I will also briefly share with you my my usual comments about less said is usually better than more. That old adage of I didn't have time to write you, sorry to write you such a long letter, didn't have time to write you a short one applies here in spades, because time and time again, I've seen that even though you have 10 minutes to speak, by the time you reach 5 minutes, you've probably lost half of your audience. So brevity is the soul of wit, as the bard says. With that in mind, and waiting on the final swearing in, and for people to return with their handouts, I will ask everybody to do their best to keep it brief tonight. I understand that there is a competing activity going on in about an hour's time that several people have come up to me and urged me to be mindful of, and I believe democracy will take its course, but as my predecessor was fond of saying, a full and fair debate is not the same thing as endless debate. So with that, I will call this special town meeting of the town of Swampscott, December 1st, 2025 to order. All of those who feel obliged, please join me in pledging our allegiance to our flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. You may be seated. And with that, we come to Article 1, approving bills of prior fiscal years. I'm sorry, we had one more introduction. If you'll hold on the floor for a moment, Mr. McDonald. Ms. Phelan, you would like to recognize our newest town staff member.
I will be brief. Katie Phelan, Chair of the Select Board, and tonight I am pleased to formally introduce our new Town Administrator, Nick Connors. Nick joined, oh, go ahead, please. Nick joined Swampscott from the town of Milton, where he served as Assistant Town Administrator and brings with him extensive experience in both municipal and state government. Prior to his work in Milton, Nick spent more than a decade with the Massachusetts Department of Conservation and Recreation in senior leadership roles and served on the Linfield's Finance Committee, giving him a strong foundation in fiscal responsibility and public service. From day one, Nick has truly hit the ground running, bringing a collaborative, hands-on approach to his work and a clear commitment to supporting town staff, volunteers, appointed officials, and this board. His focus on teamwork, transparency, and measurable goals aligns closely with the board's values and the values of our community. On behalf of the Select Board and the town of Swampscott, I want to thank Nick for stepping into this role with energy and dedication, and we're confident he will help lead Swampscott into its next chapter. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Phelan. Apologies, did not mean to skip over that. Article 1, approving bills of prior fiscal years. Mr. McDonald.
Yeah, Greg McDonald, Finance Committee member, Town Meeting member, Precinct 2. Article 1, approval bills of prior fiscal years. The Finance Committee recommends the town vote to authorize payments of bills in prior fiscal years totaling $11,735.53 is detailed in the printed warrant and as funding therefore to transfer $11,735.53 from free cash. I move the recommendation of the Finance Committee.
Is there a second? Mr. McDonald?
This is routine, comes up every town meeting. It's just bills that come in after the fiscal year cutoff of June 30.
Thank you, Mr. McDonald. Is there any debate or discussion? Mr. McDonald's motion. I do just want to clarify that we are transferring $11,735.54 from free cash. There was a rounding error at some point that went back and forth from 53 to 54 during the discussions.
Oh.
All those in favor of Mr. McDonald's motion, this does require a 9/10 vote. All those opposed, carries unanimously. Article 2,
Article 2, amend fiscal year 2026 operating budget.
Mr. McDonald.
Sorry.
Is that right?
The Finance Committee recommends that the town vote to amend the fiscal year 2026 departmental budget as shown in the printed warrant. I move the recommendation of the Finance Committee.
Is there a second? Mr. McDonald.
This is routine shuffling of the 2026 budget.
Any discussion of the line items being moved from and to? You'll note that the net change to the amount appropriated last May is $0. Discussion or debate? All those in favor of Mr. McDonald's motion? All those opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Come to Article 3, to amend the FY 2026 operating budget with regards to collective bargaining agreements. Mr. McDonald.
So Article 3, amend fiscal year 2026 operating budget. CBA, the Finance Committee recommends indefinite postponement. I move the recommendation of the Finance Committee.
Is there a second? Yes, Mr. McDonald, I understand that there have been no agreements reached, and that's the reason.
That is my understanding.
And Mr. Connor, does that remain true? So with no agreement being reached, there is no need to appropriate the first year for any given collective bargaining agreement. All those in favor of Mr. McDonald's motion to indefinitely postpone? All those opposed? The motion carries unanimously. Article 4, Homeless and Foster Care Transportation, Ms. Dreeben.
Naomi Dreeben, Finance Committee and Town Meeting Member, Precinct 3. Thank you, Mr. Moderator. The Finance Committee recommends that the town approve Article 4 as set forth in the printed warrant. I move the recommendation of the Finance Committee.
Is there a second? Ms. Dreeben.
This is it's reimbursement for the expense that the school spent, and the state reimburses a portion of the expenses, but when the state reimburses, it comes into the town, and the town just wants to transfer it back to the schools.
Is there a debate or discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of Ms. Dreeben's motion? All those opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Article 5, to rescind the vote of Article 6 in the May 2025 annual town meeting regarding the Special Education Reserve Fund. Ms. Dreeben.
The Finance Committee recommends that the town rescind the vote taken under Article 6 of the May 2025 annual town meeting warrant. I move the recommendation of the Finance Committee.
Is there a second? Ms. Dreeben.
So this is interesting. I saw first the word rescind, and I thought, oh no, we agreed on everything last spring, and now we're rescinding? That doesn't sound right. But what we're doing is the schools are allowed to have a certain amount, a percentage of the annual budget in this fund, and the $400,000 threw it over what they're allowed, and so the school finance director actually recommended that we do this.
Thank you, Ms. Dreeben.
So we're in agreement on that.
Debate or discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of Ms. Dreeben's motion to rescind that vote from last May, all those opposed, Motion carries unanimously. Article 6, to approve the transfer of free cash into the Special Ed Reserve Fund. Ms. Dreven.
The Finance Committee recommends that the town approve Article 6 as set forth in the printed warrant. I move the recommendation of the Finance Committee.
Is there a second? Ms. Dreven.
This is in accordance with an agreement between the Select Board and the School Committee. For further details, I will ask our chair to explain if you have further detailed questions.
Is there debate or discussion? Seeing none. Yes, ma'am. Please come forward or use the one behind you. And just identify yourself and your precinct.
Judy Locke, Precinct 6. Could you explain the reserve fund, how much is in there? Where did the money come from? Where does the rescinded money that we just voted go to? Just the background of the whole thing, because a few of us are a little confused.
Understood. Great question. Perhaps Mr. Levy?
The Special Ed Reserve Fund had $438,980 in it as of June 30th, 2025, not including the $400,000 that was transferred into the account at May 25 annual town meeting. So the balance is $438,980 after the rescission that was just approved. And the limit is slightly over $700,000, which is 2% of net school spending. So appropriating this funding into the fund, $94,864 would keep us below the limit and also keep true to the MOU between the town and the school department. Yeah.
If I recall correctly, there was one option to rescind only a portion of a vote from May, but that seemed a little harder to explain.
Cleaner to rescind the vote.
Yeah. So to simply rescind and then to appropriate the correct amount in this vote. Further questions? All those in favor of Ms. Dreven's motion? All those opposed? The motion carries unanimously. Come to Article 7, approving the transfer of free cash in regards to adjusting tax rates. Mr. Hartman.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Eric Hartman, Precinct 1, Finance Committee Chair and Town Meeting Member. The Finance Committee recommends the town transfer the sum of $720,000 from free cash to the account of current revenue to be used and applied by the Board of Assessors in the reduction of the tax levy for fiscal year 2026. I move the recommendation of the Finance Committee.
Is there a second? Mr. Hartman.
I have a few slides coming. Okay, good evening. So this article is a recurring article where we discuss, the use of free cash or other reserves to limit how much our taxes are going to increase. So our overall tax rate setting process has several components, which you can see on the screen. And the process began back in May when we set the FY26 budget. So as we'll remember, the town had historically been operating under a policy of limiting the growth in the levy. Instead of going all the way up to the 2.5% limit allowed by Prop 2.5, we had been holding it to 2%, plus a provision for new growth, which historically had been $425,000. But last year we had to stray from that policy, and we set the expenditure budget with the assumption of a 2.5% increase, plus $425,000 in new growth. And we also voted to approve the use of $2.1 million of additional unused levy capacity. This was in response to continued rising costs in the town, as well as some expected decreases in our local receipts. You can go to the next slide, please. So when we talk about the tax levy, we're talking about the portion of the operating budget that we're funding through real estate taxes. But of course, the town also takes in other local receipts that help fund some of the activities in town. These include items like motor vehicle excise tax, building permits, meals taxes, and investment income, to name a few. The town was planning for a significant decrease in local receipts in 2026 in part due to the reduction of the investment income we had been earning in prior years when we had the money from the bonds as we built the new school. And we also received last year a $1 million grant, or I guess it was a grant, from National Grid related to the new school. Again, a non-recurring revenue item that wasn't going to recur in 2026. So in total, our local receipts were expected to be about $1.5 million less than they had been in the previous year. Next slide. We talk a lot about new growth in town as well. It's one of the things we estimated when we're setting the budget. And this is on the favorable side. Our new growth was certified at $711,000 versus our historical benchmark of $425,000. And we've been saying for a while we're expecting that potentially our new growth will continue to increase in future years as projects like the Glover, the Hadley, and Pine Street all come online. But those haven't materialized yet, so they're probably still a few years out. Next slide. So now if we talk about our real estate taxes, which is really obviously the biggest component of how we finance the town. Controlling the growth of the town's real estate has been a focus of the town for many years, and we have some solid results to show for having been disciplined in our budgeting and striving to limit the growth of the levy below what Prop 2.5 would allow. The town's goal has not been to have the lowest tax rate in our area, but we did find ourselves on the high end of many charts when we compared ourselves to other towns in Essex County, or other peer communities that we have identified to be similar to Swampscott, or even when we compare ourselves to Marblehead. So looking back 10 years, Swampscott had the 4th highest average single-family tax bill out of 34 communities in Essex County. Fast forward to 2025, we're now the 11th highest. So this chart also highlights the overall modest growth in the average tax bill in Swampscott over this 10-year period. Next slide, please. So these are the peer communities that we've compared ourselves to, just trying to look at towns that are similar in population and other attributes. So we've tracked these 12 communities for the last 10 years as far as what their single-family average tax bill has been. I think you can go to the next slide, please. Yeah. So back in 2015, the average single-family tax bill in Swampscott was 29% higher than the peer group. As this chart shows, over the 10-year period, the peer groups have increased in each year, and over the 10-year period have experienced a 46% increase in their tax bill. Swampscott experienced a 19% increase over the same 10-year period, and is now just 4% above the peer group. Again, we're not saying we're hitting it out of the park, and we've lowered ourselves as low as we want to go, but it is good progress, and we're continuing to fund the town for the town's needs. Next slide. This last slide on this topic shows how we're doing versus Marblehead, as well as the peer group. And you can see here that Marblehead has experienced a similar increase as the peer group has over this 10-year period, at a 44% increase as compared to Swampscott's 19% increase, and the peer group growing by 46%. So that just shows that the total growth in the average single-family tax bill over this 10-year period. But if we calculated the annual compound growth rate, as that's been experienced over this time, we'd see that Swampscott's compound annual growth rate is only 1.8% as compared to 4.7% for the peer groups. So once we took this focus on a little over 10 years ago, we have made significant progress while also being able to take on significant projects to make Swampscott a better place. Next slide. So much of the data that's available when we talk about comparing tax rates to other communities is based on the average value of a single-family home. But in a town like Swampscott, median can be a more relevant indicator. The median single-family assessment increased by about 2.3% in 2026. It went from $769,000 to $787,000. So just to be clear about valuation increases, the increases in the town's property value in general do not mean that the town will earn more revenue through property taxes. or that an individual homeowner will experience a higher tax bill. The cost of running the town is allocated across the entire residential and commercial tax base. So if the value of your home changes in line with the change in the overall value of the town, then you would experience a similar increase in your tax bill for that year. But if your valuation increases or decreases disproportionately to the overall change in the town's valuation, then you could end up paying a bit more or a bit less. Said another way, each taxpayer is paying their pro rata share of the cost to operate the town based on your real estate value. But the disciplined approach to our finances that the town has employed over the last several years has strengthened our reserves and allowed us to be in a position to take on some of the larger projects that we're currently in the midst of. This disciplined financial approach has also helped the town receive a AAA bond rating from S&P. We have been striving for that AAA bond rating for many years, as this helps to control the cost of our debt, and having this high rate will really help us as we issue future bonds. So let's take a look at where we are with our reserves, because at this point we've talked about what the budget looks like, what our local receipts look like. Now it's up to us to make a decision, how much do we want to use of our reserves to try to limit the growth in the tax rate. Next slide. So the town's free cash was recently certified by the state at $3.35 million. This is approximately $1 million above the lower end of our fiscal policy, which is to carry 3% of general expenditures in free cash. However, tonight we have a few proposed uses of free cash on the warrant, but we still anticipate staying above the lower end of our fiscal policy, even if all of those warrant articles are approved, including Article 7. As a reminder, last year town meeting voted to use $850,000 of free cash to mitigate the increase in the tax rate, and the year before we used $1 million. Next slide, please. Our general stabilization fund is sitting at about $7.1 million, which is about $300,000 above the lower end of our fiscal policy, which is 9% of general fund expenditures. And our capital stabilization fund is sitting at $1.6 million, which is about $76,000 above the minimum, which for this account is 2% of general fund expenditures. So generally speaking, these two reserve accounts have been really treading water over the last several years, as we have not been able to put additional dollars into these accounts, and they're effectively just growing based on the investment income that we receive for them. But I mention this because in some of our earlier, several years ago, planning about how we would finance some bigger projects, including the new school, some of those models assumed we'd have more operating surplus and we'd be able to put money into the capital and general stabilization funds. So all that really means is dollars may not be there in future years the same way we might have modeled it out for covering some of the costs of our capital programs. Okay, so getting back to free cash, this chart shows that our certified free cash balance that was $3.35 million as of July 1st. You can go to the next slide, Dan. Right, so top of the graph there shows $3.35 million. On tonight's warrant article is going to ask for $720,000 of free cash to mitigate the overall increase in taxes. The 720 is made up of two components. The first is $350,000, which town meeting may remember that when the new school was presented or as an idea to the town, the plan was to attempt to mitigate the impact on the taxpayer annually to $365 for the cost of the school debt. So in order to do that, we would need to use $350,000 of free cash to limit the increase on the median single-family home to $365. That kind of gets back to the point I was making about our stabilization funds. We're continuing to have the dollars available in our reserve funds to keep that promise that was made to town meeting and to the town. But those reserve funds have to be there in order for us to be able to fund that in future years. So the second item is an additional $370,000 that relates to some health insurance expenses in FY 2025. And at this point, I'm going to ask the new town administrator, Nick Connors, to say a few words about that.
Mr. Connors?
and, or Mr. Luddy, as you prefer.
Yes, so Mr. Hartman mentioned there's $370,000 of health insurance expense from FY25 that was incurred and not booked to the correct account, and that was discovered and reconciled after the year had closed. So as part of DOR's regulations that we operate under, we have to add that to the tax levy this year. And so the Finance Committee is recommending that free cash is used to offset that so that it's not affecting the tax rate, and it'll flow to free cash to replenish what would have otherwise been free cash available to us this year.
Thank you, Mr. Luddy. Mr. Hartman?
That's it. So,
Okay, thank you. I hope you'll stay up here in case there are questions or discussion. The floor is open for debate or discussion.
actually, Mr. Moderator, one more, if I do have one more note I wanted
Please.
to read. So the use of the $720,000 of free cash is going to result in a residential tax rate of $12 per $1,000 of value. If you could advance, Diane. Yeah. So that this is up from $11.47 last year, or a $622 increase on the median single-family home, or about a 7% increase. You might recall at the May town meeting when we were setting the budget, we attempted to estimate what the impact of asking for the $2.1 million of excess levy use would be. And so when we did that, and we only had 2025 real estate values, but we figured we'd get a close enough estimate on that. And when we made that estimate, we expected the median single-family home would go up by $733, which is actually slightly higher than what's being presented tonight. And again, the use of this free cash will also continue to keep us slightly ahead of our minimum thresholds. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hartman. Now, any questions or discussion under Mr. Hartman's motion? Mr. Spritz? No, I'm sorry. Ma'am, you're hidden behind the woman in front of you.
Ma'am, or Bonnie Levine, Precinct 6, Town Meeting.
Thank you, Ms. Levine. I
I
stand
just want to
corrected.
say, this is the first time I've ever been able to hear or read anything that was presented to town meeting. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Thank you. I'll take any endorsements of the quality in this hall. Other comments? Seeing none, all those in favor of Mr. Hartman's motion to approve $720,000 from free cash to be used and applied by the Board of Assessors to offset the tax levy, raise your hand. All those opposed? Passes unanimously. Article 8.
The Finance Committee recommends that the town vote to appropriate $350,000 for the purpose and in the amounts identified in Article 8 of the printed warrant, as shown under the column heading Project Cost in said Article 8. And to meet this appropriation, the Treasurer, with the approval of the Select Board, is to authorize and borrow said amount pursuant to General Law, Chapter 44, Paragraph 7 or 8, or any other enabling authority to pay the costs of said capital project, including as applicable, equipping of capital items to be acquired, and all incidental and related costs, each numbered item to be considered as a separate appropriation, with the budgeted amount to be spent only for the stated purpose. I move the recommendation of the Finance Committee.
Is there a second? Is there a second? Thank you. Mr. Hartman?
So this article moves to fund a project that's for a new side entrance at the children's room at the library. The total cost of the project is estimated at $350,000. However, there is a grant available that could provide $250,000 of cost savings to the town, limiting the town's cost to this budget to $100,000. So as per usual, we're required to approve the full value of our project in our capital budget, but the project will only go forward if the grant is received.
Thank you, Mr. Hartman. Mr. Hale, did the Capital Improvements Committee meet and discuss this project?
Ryan Hale, Precinct 2, and Capital Improvement Committee Chair. Yes, we met last week and voted unanimously in support of Article 8 and Article 9.
Thank you, Mr. Hale. Is there discussion or debate on Mr. Hartman's motion to appropriate $350,000 for the side entrance to the library, with the understanding that $250,000 is out there in grants to defray most of the cost? As this is a bonding vote, I do require 2/3 vote for passage. All those in favor? All those opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Article 9, the appropriation for park grant regarding Abbott Park. Mr. Hartman.
The Finance Committee recommends that the town vote to A, appropriate the sum of $205,810 and authorize the treasurer, with the approval of the Select Board, to borrow said sum pursuant to the provisions of Mass General Law, Chapter 44, Sections 7, 8, 8C, and/or other enabling authority, for the purpose of improving, renovating, and equipping Abbott Park with new rubber safety surfacing, including without limitation all costs incidental or relative thereto, provided, however, that no funds shall be expended until the town has received a grant commitment or allocation for such cost under the Park Grant Program 301 CMR 5.00, and/or under any federal and/or other state program, to undertake the foregoing project. B, dedicate Abbott Park to park and active recreation purposes under the provisions of General Law, Chapter 45, Paragraph 3, and C, authorize the Select Board and/or its designee to apply for and accept on behalf of the town funds granted under the Park Grant Program 310 CMR 5.00, and/or any other funds, gifts, grants under any federal and/or other state program in any way connected with the scope of this article, and enter into all agreements and execute any and all instruments as may be necessary or convenient to effectuate the project on behalf of the town.
That's that mouthful.
I move the recommendation of the Finance Committee.
Thank you. Is there a second? Mr. Hartman.
As the article states, this is an article similar to Article 8, and it seeks to appropriate $205,810 for costs associated with upgrading the Abbott Park Playground. The town has already applied for, and in my understanding has received, a $100,000 grant, reducing our cost to $105,810.
Thank you, Mr. Hartman. And I note that Mr. Hale reported on the Capital Improvements Committee's response, unanimously supporting this, as well as Article 8. But I appreciate you both being up here for any questions or discussion. Any comments, questions, or discussion? Seeing none, this is also a borrowing issue. I'm sorry, Mr. Spritz, there you are.
Hi, this is Wayne Spritz, Precinct 3, and I am the real thing. Thank you. I was trying to think of a funny quip, I couldn't really. So my couple of key questions. I remember 20 years ago, I was actually helping build the Abbott Playground, and I don't remember ever being anything close to that number. Maybe there's some questions that I've asked people around the room, and they've asked me, is why is it so expensive? The second question is, I didn't realize it wasn't a designated park already. Does this have anything to do with the change of use as it's not being a school anymore? And will this action only take place, assuming you said that they absolutely received the $100,000 grant?
That's my understanding, yes.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Yeah.
Excuse me. Mr. Hartman, if you have any, or Mr. Hale, any commentary about the scale of construction costs that have risen in the past 20 years? Excuse me.
Sure. I'll take that one. So I think it primarily relates to the nature of the work. Is we're using different materials to make sure that the space is accessible, and it's just a very different construction than what was done originally. I can't speak either way about the designation of the space, so maybe Marzi or someone would be more informed on that.
Ms. Galaska.
Marcy Galaska, Precinct 6 Town Meeting Member and Community Development Director. Previously, as you can recall, we have received funding to do Phase 1 of rehabilitation at Abbott Park. At that time, we dedicated the park as parkland. So although it's still in the article, but just as a reminder that that land will be protected, or the park will be protected. In regards to the cost, I'm happy to let you know that we did seek estimates, cost estimates, and unfortunately, petroleum products, as everything else, has increased in cost, and that's the reason for the amount of funding that came in. And thank you, the town did receive $100,000 in grants, so we do ask for town meeting approval of the funding of the grant.
Thank
And
you,
I'm
Ms.
happy
Galaska.
to answer any other questions.
Great, thank you. Any other questions? Yes, Ms. Martin Epstein.
Hi, Kim Martin Epstein, Precinct 3, Town Meeting Member. There was some general language that said that you were going to authorize entering into any and all agreements related to this, and it's really broad, and I'm sure that's really helpful. I just want to know, are there going to be any new use restrictions? I know, Marzi, thank you for confirming that it's already designated as a park, which restricts it a lot. Is there going to be any other restrictions that you can that we're thinking, only because, you know, times change and sometimes you want to change the designation of someplace, and the more restrictions that they have, the harder it is to change later. I'm just wondering if there were any other strings attached that would further restrict the property, and just something to think about.
Yeah.
Thank you,
At
Ms.
this time, the
Martin.
Commonwealth is not requesting us or requesting any additional requirements or anything else that comes along with the funding. These are funds that come through the state, so we are required to comply with all state regulations.
Thank you, Ms. Galaska. Any further questions? As this is a bonding issue as well, this requires a 2/3 vote. All those in favor of Mr. Hartman's motion? All those opposed? The motion carries unanimously. We come to Article 10, extension of use and authority to lease Hawthorne by the Sea. Ms. Phelan.
Good evening, Katie Phelan, Precinct 3 Town Meeting Member and Chair of the Select Board. The Select Board unanimously recommends that the town vote to approve Article 10 as shown on your yellow handout, I believe.
Should be the yellow handout you picked up front.
I move the recommendation of the Select Board.
Is there a second? Ms. Phelan.
Thank you. I will defer to our new town administrator, who has a brief presentation.
Mr. Connors.
Good evening. We'll just wait for the presentation.
It's coming, I promise.
Not a good one, no. We'll just have to wait. Just looking to make it halftime, maybe? Who knows, right? That was funny. So thank you all very much, and thank you for your service to the community. Before I begin, I do want to take a moment to express my appreciation to the Hawthorne Reuse Advisory Committee for completing their work. The group has done an extraordinary amount of work to identify what makes a successful reuse at the Hawthorne property. That has given us the ingredients, the vision, the goals, the principles that should guide the use of the site in the future. But as with any great meal, the ingredients are only part of it. We need to spend some time with the recipe now. And that's what we'll be working on in the months ahead, preparing for success at the Hawthorne. Article 10 gives us the time and flexibility to keep this landmark protected, active, and productive while we finish that work together. Can you go to the next slide?
Thank you, Mr. Connors.
Sure. So the path ahead is built around a dual track approach. One track is focused on the short-term activation of the site, the other on the long-term redevelopment and the planning that will go into that. This approach keeps the site alive while we work toward that permanent solution. It's both fiscally responsible and community-minded. It ensures that we generate value rather than costs while we continue and complete this plan. All 5 members of the Select Board unanimously support this approach because it protects the town interests and it maintains the momentum that we've begun to create with the Hawthorne. Can you go to the next slide? These two tracks are complementary because activation gives us energy, data, and visibility. It shows us how the site can function and what people may want. Planning ensures that our next steps are deliberate and they're aligned with the community goals. Without activation, we'd face months of vacancy, paying for insurance, heat, and maintenance, and with nothing to show for it. With activation, we keep the property engaged. We generate information that shapes our redevelopment RFP. This is about momentum, moving forward responsibly and not standing still in the near term. Next slide. The Hawthorne is one of Swampscott's most visible landmarks, but a vacant landmark can quickly become a symbol of stagnation. Immediate activation sends a different message, that Swampscott is alive, forward-looking, and committed to progress. It brings light, people, and energy back to the site. It reduces vandalism, it lowers liability, and it saves the town money on the utilities and maintenance. And it also supports local business and vendors, stimulating our economy instead of adding another drain to it. Can we go to the next slide, please? But I want to be very clear that activation doesn't replace redevelopment, it enables it. The long-term vision remains mixed use that combines open space, commercial activity, and community amenities. While we pursue short-term activation, we're also continuing to work on the studies, community engagement, and negotiations with the Archdiocese for the parking lot that's adjacent. This additional land could unlock the full potential of the site, making possible a balanced plan with green space, appropriate parking, and future revenue generation that can support the town. At this point, I just want to highlight that when we think about what would happen if we don't authorize tonight, the idea that we could immediately move to action is not really something that is realistic. When we look at the model of the Hadley as an example, there's a process that we need to follow to gather data, put out an RFP, choose a vendor, engage in the negotiations with them, review redevelopment proposals that would take us months and months, well into the 18 months, 2-year window that we're seeking, the 2.5-year window that we're seeking here tonight. If you look at the process with the Hadley, and we have it all listed online, I didn't want to put up another slide and walk through it, but there are steps that we would need to take that would take this time, and this short-term activation is an important part of that now. Can you go to the next slide? So here's where we stand. To date, the town has closed the purchase of the property and completed the advisory process to identify priorities. In the next steps, we hope to align those priorities with market analysis, conclude the negotiations with the church on the property, and craft a new RFP that's grounded both in community goals and the fiscal realities we're facing. And importantly, I want to also share that the Select Board, as we highlighted in the letter that was shared with members by the moderator over the weekend, the Select Board will report back to town meeting in May with results and milestones, both on the short-term activation and milestones on what we can expect and where we want to be on the longer-term redevelopment proposals. This built-in accountability ensures transparency throughout the process. Can we go to the next slide, please? Our immediate goal is the short-term lease that brings the Hawthorne to life again. We envision restaurant or hospitality use, something that's community-oriented, lively, and welcoming. This can be done using the existing infrastructure, meaning that as part of an RFP, we would commit to no town capital being expended. We would have a transparent RFP process that invites operators, both local, who have expressed an interest in public meetings and beyond, to compete for the opportunity to support the community. It's a chance to transform the Hawthorne from an idling building into an active destination that adds value from day one. Next slide, please. Am I a slide ahead? Can we go back one?
Can you go back one slide? I think we are ahead one slide.
Okay, so that was the one I just talked about. Thank you. I apologize. Thank you for noting that. Now we can go to the next one. Forward, please. Yes, thank you. Okay, so our approach here is fiscally prudent and low risk. By leasing the site, we offset the town's costs for utilities, insurance, and upkeep. At the same time, we reduce the risks associated with vacancy, the damage, the deterioration, and vandalism that could likely follow. We've built in clear accountability through reporting to the Select Board from staff and to town meeting in May. This is a responsible stewardship path forward, protecting both taxpayer dollars and preserving an important community asset. Next slide. Everything about this plan is the goal of supporting Swampscott's long-term goals: a vibrant downtown, greater walkability, stronger community engagement. This activation is an approach that is both incremental and flexible. It advances our shared goals while allowing us to adapt as we learn as well. It keeps the community input at the center of our effort and ensures that progress never comes at the expense of that accountability and the community input. Next slide, please. Do you mean we should go back one? Okay. This is fine. We'll stay here and I'll answer questions along with you all. We'll move forward with clear governance, a transparent procurement, and careful oversight. If this passes, the RFP for activation can be posted anytime after December 3rd. We posted within the Central Register so that it is possible if authorized this evening. This timeline keeps us on track, protecting the asset now while we also prepare for the long-term future. Returning to the earlier metaphor, the reuse committee has given us the ingredients. Tonight, you can give us the time and flexibility to perfect the recipe that we want to put together. I respectfully ask for your support on behalf of the Select Board to keep Hawthorne active, protected, and positioned for a successful future for Swampscott. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Connors. I have a number of names of folks who've approached me that want to speak on this. I will attempt to get through all of them, and then also to look for people who want to rise on the floor. And we will start with Mr. Watson.
My name is Brian Watson, Precinct 4 Town Meeting member and Chairman of the Hawthorne Reuse Advisory Committee. I'm also a registered architect in the state of Massachusetts, although now retired. On November 18th, at our last committee meeting, we voted 10-0 to oppose this Article 10. 2 members were absent. The advisory committee is comprised of 12 members, and the group has quite a diversity of opinions, so it is notable that this diverse group did oppose this article. The committee met 17 times over the course of 9 months and examined roughly 19 site plans of the single Hawthorne site and 12 plans of a potential double lot site if the town purchased the church parking lot or a portion of the lot. Early on in our process, the committee nearly unanimously agreed that the Hawthorne Restaurant building should be demolished. Now, we never have said, and still do not say, that we recommend that it be demolished immediately. That's not correct. The committee did not ask for it to be demolished immediately, and in fact, it would, if it came to that, it would be demolished as part of a later and larger development plan. That's an important fact because the town would not put out the money to demolish that restaurant. The existing restaurant building totals 22,000 square feet. Its footprint on the ground and its required parking eat up the entire site, and therefore preclude, if it remains, any more imaginative site development. And this is true whether you add some portion of the church parking lot or not, as can be seen with even a cursory look at the site plans on the Hawthorne Committee website. What Article 10 proposes is not financially responsible, nor is it financially realistic. While stating their concern for the town's finances, the Select Board wants to lease the Hawthorne building to a new restaurant operator for up to 2.5 years. That is essentially equivalent to offering nearly a blank check to a prospective restaurant tenant. Under those circumstances, we don't doubt that the town could generate interest on the part of a restaurant owner. That is not the question. The question isn't whether we could generate interest. The question is whether the revenue that would come to the town from a temporary restaurant operator would exceed the costs to the town over 2.5 years. In other words, we would receive something, presumably, from a temporary restaurant operator. But the question is, would that something we receive amount to a greater value in dollars of the amount the town will have to put out during that 2.5 years on behalf of the restaurant? No temporary tenant trying to start a restaurant would be in a position to make meaningful payments to the town. Some payments, yes, but would they be meaningful payments in contrast to what the town would have to spend? Worst of all, the town would be stuck in the position of making minor and major repairs to the building now and during the lease period. This is just common sense. What temporary restaurant owner, knowing he would be gone in 2 years or 2.5 years, would put substantial money into the physical plant of the building? Under those circumstances, the building would be a potential money pit to the town. That would be an extremely vulnerable place financially for the town to be in. The building currently needs repairs to its roof, exterior trim, front overhangs, cracks in the east wall. Expansion joints have lost their sealant and backer rods, and second floor has some leaks, and there are many other issues to the building. I've been through the building twice with demolition contractors. I've been through the cellar. I've been through the first and second floors. When we examined the electric room, we couldn't go in the electric room because there was standing water 1/8 of an inch thick in the room, which is adjacent to the east wall, which has cracks in it. I doubt that our building inspector would issue an occupancy permit if there's any water whatsoever leaking into an electric room. That's just common sense. An elevator would need to be installed to the second floor to use it. The large exterior deck in the back is unusable as its floorboards are literally rotting. There are rotten wood gutters, which you can see if you go to the front of the building. You can see them literally hanging off the building at haphazard angles. The facade and the exterior skin has not received maintenance in a long time. The possibility also exists for more expensive repairs to become necessary within the next 2.5 years. This is a huge unknown. I don't know, but nobody knows. The HVAC systems are old. That's heating, ventilating, and air conditioning, and they may need major work within the next 2.5 years. A temporary tenant would not be able financially to make those repairs. Maintaining the Hawthorne building for 2.5 years could easily cost the town well more revenue than any amount it gains. Because leasing the building comes with large financial risk, the idea of a 2.5-year delay seems mostly about buying time to continue negotiating with the Archdiocese of Boston, which itself is a puzzle. Being determined, for the town to be determined to buy a portion of the church parking lot without knowing how the two parcels would be used seems odd. It seems financially very unconservative. To end on a positive note, there is a better path than Article 10. The Select Board could stop pursuing the purchase of a portion of the church lot or set a hard deadline for doing so. This additional land would gain the town very little if the restaurant building stays permanently on the site. The Select Board could immediately focus on determining what plan or vision it prefers for the site. And nobody's pretending that this would happen quickly. It would take months. It would unfold. During that time, the town can simply let the Hawthorne building remain vacant. There are ways to secure vacant buildings. It is done all the time. A vacant building is not a boogeyman to be feared, especially by contrast with the costs of the alternative, and especially if ultimately it is going to be demolished. The town would not have to maintain the building. The town would not have to repair the building. It can leave it as is. And as far as insurance goes, the town will be wise to have insurance on that building, whether it is vacant or whether it is live. The select board does not need 2.5 years to figure out what the town would like to do on the site. Maybe it's 3, 4, 5 months. After that, and with a May 2026 town meeting approval, the board could then write an RFP and get the process rolling from there. The Hawthorne building could be demolished by a developer at his cost well before the end of 2026, at the start of a larger redevelopment process. Now, I say the developer would take that building down at his cost. There's no free lunch. The town essentially would pay for it ultimately over time by the reduced leasing cost of say, a ground lease. It's just that the town wouldn't have to front money for any of these costs. The town would be in control every step of the way. It would get the product and the site plan that it wants and not have to put out demolition dollars, construction dollars, or building maintenance dollars. This path is realistic, it's feasible, it's doable, and it's time-tested by many municipalities. We urge you to oppose this article. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Watson. Before I recognize one of the other people who've approached me, Mr. Connors, just to the question of the capital exposure, can you speak briefly to that?
I would like to highlight that as part of the RFP process, we are dictating that we will not be spending on capital improvements. The respondents will be the ones that will determine whether or not they would like to be a respondent to the RFP with that risk. We are limiting our exposure from the beginning, and it will be part of any proposal that they get back to us. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Connors. I have a Mr. Bond, John Bond.
John Bond, Precinct 6, not a member of town meeting. I support what Mr. Watson has just said. I'd like to emphasize one particular aspect of it, and that is, think about this from the point of view of anyone that is going to lease this property. It's now vacant and has been stripped. They're going to have to make hundreds of thousands of dollars at least in investment to operate a restaurant. Now we're told that it's going to be responsible for capital investments. Therefore, it will want as long a lease as possible. Will we end up with 2.5 years? Maybe not. Maybe Select Board will come back and ask for more time on this lease so they can get a tenant. What's the biggest problem with that? The longer that lease, the longer the time from when, as Brian just explained, the town could proceed with redevelopment that makes sense, you will have a gap that will be reflected in highly inflated costs for the ultimate development that will be borne by the town. We all know that the costs of construction have gone way up. They will continue to go up. And by inserting another period of a year, year and a half, 2 years, between the time when we could redevelop and when it would, if you have a temporary tenant in there, the costs will escalate greatly. The second point I'd like to make and emphasize is there's really no good reason to have that structure where it is located. Even if you have fond memories of the Hawthorne, having it there obliterates almost all the value of the remainder of the site. It's the prime, it occupies the prime vantage point, prime outlook onto the water and the bay that in all of the plans that the advisory committee came up with, there would be a view from the street. So you would have enhanced value and economic activity on the interior. You would have a park fronting on that water and a public walkway. There's no good reason to keep that structure there any longer than necessary. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bond. Mr. Hale, I see you, but there was a Paula Claridge that approached me earlier. Ms. Claridge, are you here tonight? Okay, Mr. Hale.
Ryan Hale, Town Meeting Member, Precinct 2, and Capital Improvement Committee Chair. I just had a question for the Select Board, maybe to clarify some of the language in here, and then potentially a comment afterwards. I would just like to understand, towards the end there, it says, on such terms and conditions as the Select Board shall deem appropriate for an additional period that not extend beyond September 31st, 2028. Does the Select Board intend to negotiate terms of a lease that could be terminated by either party with like a notice period, or is the intention for the lease term to extend until December 31st, 2028, and not sooner?
Thank you, Mr. Hale. Ms. Phelan.
So originally, the warrant article was considered to go even longer than this. Wait,
June?
this really, sorry, this warrant article does not reflect the handout, right?
Yeah, the handout reflects June.
June, right. So June is the at the end of the fiscal year. And the reason we were discussed this at Select Board, and it was a conversation about timing, right? Like, is 3 years too long? The reason it says shall not extend beyond, because if a respondent came forward and wanted a shorter period of time for whatever reason, that could be done. Also, to your point, Mr. Hale, that if, for example, we had a future use that could be utilized, there could be termination rights available by the party to cut leases shorter if we needed to, in order to focus on the long-term redevelopment solution. That's why, as Mr. Connors mentioned, the dual track of a short-term solution coupled with a long-term solution. It's not meant to replace the long-term solution. It's meant to run in tandem.
Thank you, Ms. Phelan. Ms. Myslinski, are you? There you are.
Hi, everyone. I'm Tara Myslinski. I'm on the Finance Committee. I was part of that Hawthorne Reuse Committee as well. But I'm not speaking here tonight on any official capacity, just the experience I've had on the committee to date. The Finance Committee, I don't think it was addressed, took no position on this article, just so you know. We had initially taken one vote where we were opposed to it, 4-2. That was reconsidered at our last meeting, and we decided to take no position because, which I disagree with, there's no financial known implications. I want to tell you a little bit tonight about the financial implications that we've had holding this property to date. As all of you know, we bought the property for $7 million 3 years ago. So we've had 3 years to figure out what to do with this building. The Athanases were never going to be there long term, right? We could have been planning. We could have been doing great things with those 3 years. In the meantime, we've been spending money on debt service. So your taxes have gone to pay our debt service to the tune of $550,000 per year. We did not get any of that money recouped in any form of property tax payments from the Athanases operating the Hawthorne. They did not pay property tax. So we haven't had property tax paid by that property for 3 years. They also didn't pay rent. There's a certain amount of money in escrow that will fall back to the town. I think it's $125,000 that will come back to the town. It was held in case they didn't pay rent, which they didn't pay rent. So this has been a drag on the town for 3 years, and it's time to move. It's time to be bold. It's time to look to the long-term potential for revenue generation and do it quickly. Enough is enough. I have heard tell that there's discussions about acquiring the church parking lot next door. I don't know about your feeling, but that would also require a large capital expenditure for the town. As part of the Hawthorne Reuse Committee, we have never seen any benefit, or we've never been told any clear benefit of what you could do with the church parking lot versus just the parcel we own now. I do want to show you a couple of images. To the extent you may have heard, if we get the church parking lot, we'll still be able to have green space. And I just want to show you what the green space may look like. If we have the church parking lot, this is a sketch by Brian, who spoke earlier from our committee. If we do acquire that parking lot, yes, you get a little more space to the left side of the picture, but you have an oceanfront park. When we acquired this property, everybody wanted some public use. We wanted some public benefit. We did not want to subsidize a restaurant for a restaurateur to get wealthy. Using this as just a diagram, an idea. You have an oceanfront park for the public to stroll along the ocean. There's a waterfront walkway. There's green space. There's a view to Boston. Beautiful. You also have some active use on the street. You have a courtyard in between the buildings that were proposed, and you still have some parking. If you look at keeping the building, which is the next slide, this is, again, these are just concepts. These are just ideas. If you keep the building there, not only do you not have a view to Boston, you don't have a beautiful park, you don't have a big open green space for people to enjoy the water. You have a ton of parking, you have a asphalt streetscape, and that's just kind of like, this is why I personally do not see the benefit of keeping the building. And as Brian said, our entire committee was against this article. I probably used all of my 3 minutes at this point. But I guess my biggest fear is if we go down this road, and we've heard many arguments for it tonight from the select board, I'm nervous that this will get us into a permanent position that we won't be able to get ourselves out of. We will lose the potential, if you can go back one more slide, we'll lose the potential of this great vision. And the chance to, really what we were promised and we all hoped for is a chance to bring back our streetscape and bring back our downtown, make it lively, make it available for everyone, and not just people who want to pay to go to a restaurant. I just do want to note one more thing in the warrant language. There's nothing in there about promising that we won't spend capital, right? There's no restrictions in there. It gives the select board a very long leash. And we may have learned from previous experiences that that's not a great thing, right? We want to give them some flexibility, but we don't want a long leash. I mean, it doesn't even require, it doesn't say anything about we don't have to spend capital. So if there's a tenant who goes in, a pipe bursts, and it requires $2 million in repairs, who's going to repair? The tenant's not going to repair that, right? We all know that. And that's it. I urge you all to vote against this article and to encourage the select board to get moving on the permanent plan.
Thank you, Ms. Myslinski. Mr. Thompson, did I see you have your hand up?
Well, I didn't intend to be the one
Just
to put
for
my
the
finger in the
folks-
dike. Doug Thompson, town meeting member, precinct 5. My select board colleagues can add or edit to what I'm saying. So I have a feeling that it seems like a simple and obvious next step to many people that haven't been immersed in the details. And I don't want to kind of bury people in the details, but I do feel like I need to share some of the complexities of the situation so you all at least don't think that we're kind of out to lunch with thinking about an alternative to these pretty pictures that Tara shared with us. I think, first of all, kind of working backward, there's nothing in here that allows the select board to go willy-nilly spending capital money. Okay, that's just factually not true. We basically are simply asking for a little bit more time to explore what could be an even better solution. We don't know for sure. It may be, it may not be. We do recognize that it's going to take a lot of support from many of us in here, probably no matter which option goes forward, probably 2/3 support. Because whether an option is pursued to purchase the other half of the church parking lot or to build a big, beautiful park, it's going to be a major capital expenditure. And that's going to take 2/3 agreement from this body. So we're trying to put together the pieces to make sure that we can assemble that type of coalition. There's many, many, many things we could talk about in terms of the long-term solution. But what's in front of us tonight is not the long-term solution. I think we all agree that there's a lot we don't know about the long-term solution. The reuse committee has put together a very nice picture, but it's a long way, even if you said forget the church parking lot, it's a long way from that picture to a reality. I think many people in this room have been through many chapters, most recently with the Hadley, even here with the Hawthorne. We think, oh my goodness, you know, we should just be able to charge right ahead. Well, it's taken us 3 years to get to this point. Even if you proceed straight forward from that picture, you've got many, 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 many months. You've got years before you're at a place when you know definitively how you're going to move forward. That means that building's going to be sitting there empty for that period of time. There's no room to tear it down. Even the reuse committee thinks we shouldn't tear it down. So there'd be no revenue. You can chime in and say, hey, you're not going to get much if you actually lease it out to someone else, but you're going to get something. People understand that in order to, even if we just turned on a dime right now and said that's exactly the vision, which we haven't voted on, you got to put out an RFP. First, you got to assemble an RFP, but you got to put out an RFP. You have to have bidders. You got to negotiate with them. You got to get to a final one. Then you got to go through a land development agreement process. That's real time. Is it 12 months, 18 months, 24 months? We don't know. And that's if you just started tomorrow. That building's going to be empty. It is empty now. So what we're suggesting is that given our current situation, the realities of what it takes to actually get to a full and final solution that the whole community buys into is that we go out, put out an RFP right now for a short-term use, see what information we get back. We may come back with nothing. That'll clear things up. We may come back with something that's wonderful, that's 12 or 18 months. We don't know. We want to go out and do that, see what the market says, and in a select board meeting or a public meeting in February, share with everyone what we've learned, get feedback, and move forward at that point. We could get approval for this article right now, go through that process, get information back, and in February, have that public meeting, get feedback that says, nope, it's not worth it. Move on. Maybe we'll get some great information. Be good to know that. That, I think, is the essence of the question that's just in front of us today. There's not enough information, as the Finance Committee debated, to really know about all the long-term implications right now. So I think that's what we as a select board are asking for, is your support to get more information in the short run, assess the situation, and report back in the next couple weeks, next couple months. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Thompson. I saw Mr. Patsios, then Mr. Norton, then Mr. Smith, and then Ms. Smith.
Good evening, Charlie Patsios, Precinct 5. I see Chair of the Housing Authority, Assessor, Water and Sewer Advisory, what else? Something else, I forget. Town meeting member. I'm not a registered architect in Massachusetts, but I am a real estate guy in Massachusetts. And I've heard some of the stuff that's been said tonight, and I hope everybody disregards the stuff that is a $2 million water pipe breaking. That won't happen. Well, actually, it could happen if the building is left empty and the heat isn't there because no one's watching it. And we have to have the sprinkler system on at that building because that's a fire safety issue. And so we have to have the heat on for the sprinkler system to work. So we're going to have an electric bill and a heating bill and an insurance bill. I don't care who you are. If you rent the building, you will cover those expenses. I've written enough commercial leases in my time to know that that is a non-negotiable. That is in all commercial leases. You pay your heat, you pay your electricity, and you pay your insurance. One thing we won't get if we put a tenant in there is an electric bill, a heating bill, and an insurance bill. That is for sure. So people that said the building isn't any good and you can't use it, I was in the building when the auction was occurring, and I saw what was left when it was done, and the building is habitable. There isn't a case to be made, professionally speaking right now, that demolishing that building early is going to get anybody the result that they want. We've heard that some people don't necessarily want to tear the building down immediately. Let me tell you what happens if you tear the building down a little earlier than you might want. You lose something called your setbacks or your regulations, where you can put your building according to your property lines. I won't get specific, I'll just be very general to say that if we preserve even a portion of that building, our setbacks are grandfathered. We keep our rights as a town. In order to know what we're going to do in the future, we can't make any mistakes and give anything up today. I support 100% the article that's in front of you. And if there isn't, and you heard Doug say it, if there's not going to be any takers, then we tried. But to not try and to put that money out, non-recoverable, I think is very wasteful, foolish. And if you think that you're going to bring something faster to this town by shutting the building down, you're mistaken. There's a lot of things we could have done better. But I've given up all hope on a better past. But I do have hope that the right thing to do tonight is to pass 10. There isn't a doubt, and I think you all know me, I argue when I think that there's even a small amount of a chance of a mistake happening. It would be a mistake not to pass this. The select board is right. To have the opportunity to find out what the market is willing to do for us, rather than us shutting the door on that opportunity to find out, is a mistake that we shouldn't make. There's two things that we talked about putting on an RFP. There's something called an RFI and an RFQ, request for information, request for qualifications. The marketplace will come to us and show us what can be done based on some of the plans that we saw. They can still provide us, at no cost to us, an opportunity for the market to speak based on what we ask them to do for us. Please, 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 do not make a mistake and bury 10. It has to pass. It is the safest thing for this town. I strongly urge everyone to put their emotions aside and put the intellect ahead. There is no reason why we want to pay for insurance, for heat and electricity when someone else might want to do that. How do we find out if it's might or would? By passing Article 10 to find out. So what's wrong with finding out? Let's give the select board the opportunity to do their job. Let's hold their feet to the fire. Get it done, guys. But please pass 10.
Thank you, Mr. Patsios. Mr. Norton, then Mr. Smith. I've got Ms. Smith and Ms. DiCillo after that. Mr. Norton, yes, please. Oh, okay, Mr. Oh, I'm sorry. In the back there. My apologies, Ken. Yeah, please use it's hard enough to see back there. It's certainly impossible to hear.
Hi, Mike Kelleher, Precinct 4. I'm urging that we are pro Article 10 and see what happens. The Hawthorne closed just a couple weeks ago. For years, it operated as a older style restaurant, using only part of the building and serving only a narrow slice of our town. That chapter has ended, and with it comes a rare opening for Swampscott. Right now, we have a choice. We can leave this waterfront building vacant and fenced off for years while long-term plans unfold, or we can bring it back to life now in a way that energizes and unites the community. I believe the Hawthorne should become our community test kitchen, a living example of what Swampscott can be when we put people and connection first. A place that serves the whole town. Imagine mornings with coffee and breakfast sandwiches, a warm place for commuters, parents after drop-off, seniors who deserve activity and belonging. Afternoons with casual lunch options, indoor-outdoor seating, flexible space for kids' activities, civics groups, and local creators. Evenings with family, dinners, music, trivia, movie nights, youth programs, and fundraisers, all overlooking our beautiful shoreline. We can highlight our veterans. They're a cornerstone in our community, and the recent VFW situation has been challenging for everyone, including this board and everyone else here. I'm not here to assign blame. I'm here to say we have an opportunity to now lift our veterans up. The Hawthorne can host dedicated Veterans Nights, community dinners, their honor, and priority celebration during 4th of July and other holidays. This is a chance to do something positive, meaningful, and unifying. The seasonal vibrancy, farmers markets, outdoor concerts, pickleball in the off-season, winter events for kids, holiday celebrations. The building can flex and adapt, giving residents the vibrant waterfront they've been asking for. This is a smart step, not the final answer. I won't get into my specific RFP details as I'm looking forward to submitting one, if this hopefully passes, but the principle is simple. This space shouldn't sit dark for years. Activating it now gives us community benefits immediately and gives the town real insights that can guide long-term decisions. In closing, our families, our seniors, our kids deserve a space that brings people together. The Hawthorne doesn't need to be the final solution, but it can be the first step towards the waterfront we all want. Let's bring it back to life now. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Keller. Mr. Smith.
Jim Smith, Precinct 5, and a member of the Hawthorne Reuse Committee. It is the only committee I've ever asked to serve on, the only committee I have served on, because of the uniqueness, the incredible uniqueness of that site and what we should and could do with it. First of all, I want to acknowledge, I speak for myself, not for the Reuse Committee. I want to acknowledge the work of the board, of the select board. I respect the amount of time they put in as electeds, the volunteers that we run as a town on volunteers. I happen to very much oppose them on this one. I don't think we should wait 2.5 more years. We've had 3.5 years of that site. The best possible use during this tentative period was Anthony Asanis running a restaurant. Okay, he decided not to do that any longer, and now we have to move ahead. I brought along a couple of slides of some ideas that we had discussed at the Reuse Committee and what is possible at that site. That is an iconic site. It can be the downtown to Swampscott. It can be a place of gathering. It can be a place that, you know, the town is very proud of, very supportive of, and makes big use of. A few years ago, if I said to you we'd be having dinner on Humphrey Street on the sidewalk, you would laugh at me. Pre-COVID, nobody thought we should have Humphrey Street sidewalks be a place to have dinner. It turns out that from North Haven to the G, to New G, to Teresa's Avellino, to Pomona, which is now expanding, to Lincoln Landing, there's the pub. It's unlimited, the kind of activity we have on a public street where people are dining as traffic goes by, trucks, me walking my dog, and everything else. There's obviously a demand there. There's some real potential there. What that site could be is a site that draws everybody from this town in as a community, as a place we want to be, and also surrounding towns. There's 3 or 4 slides. We'll just run through these quickly. This is just the kind of activities that other communities have managed to do in their space. Probably private development, not probably, all privately developed. Go to the next couple of slides.
Point of order, Mr. Moderator. What is your point, ma'am? And please use the mic.
Mary Ellen Fletcher, Precinct 4, Select Board. We are not talking about the long-term plan for this property. We are talking
I'm sorry, what
about-
is your point of order?
My point of order is we are off track. This is not germane to the question.
That will be my decision. Thank you. Please proceed.
And actually, I am very much talking about the solution to this site. If you go to the next slide, and then what our reuse committee, that's the kind of possibilities. Now, the next slide is something that I generated. That one, that's actually, if you, now I will tell you, as a gentleman in the 70s, that was my first effort at AI. And I didn't, it wasn't terrible. But if you stand on Humphrey Street, the idea is a park beyond an active site that draws the community in with the Atlantic Ocean behind us. That is a kind of a European square type thing, and it's so unique, and very much possible at that site. The reason I oppose this particular article is, why wait? We've had 3.5 years, as Tara explained, and we paid for 3.5 years. Put an RFP on the street. Let's get this started. Why are we waiting for additional time, for another 2.5 years, which may, in fact, as we all know, drag on potentially, and more likely than not? Let's go now. Let's use that site now. We have seen all over the world. I mean, if you've been to any European square, the kind of activity that draws, we can do it here in Swampscott. We do it on Humphrey Street, for God's sakes. We serve food on sidewalks. We can do it at this location and be very successful, have something that's so unique, and create, finally, the downtown Swampscott, the urban village that we very much need. As I've said about Vinton Square many times, you can be in Toledo, Toronto, or Tallahassee, and you look just like that same square as Vinton Square. You don't know where you are. This can be Swampscott. And in spite of my AI drawing, that's our potential. My question to my good friends on the board, why wait? What are we waiting for? Get the site, let's get going. We've spent a fortune there already. We lost the Thanis. Let's get started now. I would oppose this delay. Let's put an RFP on the street now. Let's get this thing built. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Smith. Ms. Smith, then Ms. DiCillo. Well, let's let Ms. Smith speak, and then we'll have another member of the board speak.
So my understanding is that the select board has been negotiating.
If you just identify yourself, please.
Oh, sorry, Liz Smith, Precinct 3, town meeting member. My understanding is that the select board has been negotiating for about 2 years with the church. They were talking with the Monsignor. This was made quite public during the select board campaign last spring, but that went nowhere. And now we're told that they need to negotiate with the archdiocese. It wasn't really the local church that could even make a decision after 2 years, and that it's only for part of the property. I urge this body to stop letting the select board delay this process, to stop doing studies, to stop asking people for their opinions, and let's make a decision. If we're going to tear that building down, which by all accounts is what the people want and what should be done, then let's do it. Let's not wait another 30 months to start that process. Let's see the vision of that property as it's meant to be. Let's get rid of it so that we can see what the real true potential is, and let's move forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Smith. Ms. Phelan, if you'd like to rise, and then Ms. DiCillo.
Yes, Katie Phelan, Chair of the Select Board. So I just want to answer the question of what we're waiting for. So to be clear, the prior town administrator and during his tenure put together a group of people, including consultants, to review what would happen with this site after we purchased it. And as you all may recall, in B129, we had a very public, very loud meeting about how that was not the solution we all wanted. So then, in response to the call of our community, we put together the Hawthorne Reuse Committee, which just handed over its recommendations to us Tuesday, the day before we met for select board to close the warrant. So I feel a little bit, it's a little bit important to say, what have we been waiting for? Well, we had a path forward. You all spoke, we listened, which, you know, to our defense, doesn't always happen. We listened, we changed paths to put together a something that reflected more what you guys were hoping for, and we now have a recommendation before us. Even if we decided today to go forward with one piece of land with the recommendation that the Reuse Committee put forward, That process, as our town administrator stated and as Doug stated, that process takes time to negotiate, right? So if we wanted to demolish the building in the same form Mr. Watson stated, which is we put out an RFP to demolish the building and to develop mixed-use property, and a developer would pay for it, that is still going to take probably 18 to 24 months to put forth an RFP, to put it out, to have respondents, to speak to each of those respondents, to choose an appropriate winner, and then to negotiate a land development agreement. That land development agreement, and I want to say this because you're all here and we don't always have this big of an audience in front of Select Board. It was stated by Mr. Watson when he proposed the recommendation of the Hawthorne Reuse Committee. The sort of crux of that development going forward for mixed use is that the top of these long-term buildings would be residential, and that is how developers would be able to afford demolishing the building and rebuilding two smaller mixed-use buildings, which would be ground floor restaurants, cafes, what have you, upper floor commercial, perhaps even residential on the second floor, and even potentially a third floor that might be residential. So I believe originally I heard 7 units. There's been floating around of maybe 10, even 14 units I heard, in order to make that financially feasible. So to me, that means I need to pause and take a step, because when you all came before us about, God forbid I say it, the library, it was clear that residential was not even an option on the table when we bought that property. So as Mr. Patsios suggested, putting out an RFI or an RFQ to understand, is what the Hawthorne Reuse Committee plausible without residential? We don't even know the answer to that, so I can't even speak to that. But it would be great to know that before we made a decision on a long-term use. All of that needs to happen before the building comes down, before the developer takes the building down, the future developer, unless we do it. And quite frankly, we have not budgeted for that until 2028 in capital. There's a placeholder in there. And we don't have the funds to do it right now. So it is not that we are sitting on our hands waiting. It is not that we haven't done anything for 3 years. And quite frankly, if the Athanas has decided to continue a restaurant for another year, I don't know that we would all be as passionate about whether they stayed or not. But because they left, yes, they've kickstarted this conversation. But again, we just received Reuse Committee's recommendations. We do have to do, they're 40 pages long. We do have to go over them and discuss them as a board. There will be more public opportunity to have those conversations and for us to go forward with the recommendations. So I just want to be really clear. It is not that we are interested in waiting. We are interested in moving forward, very interested in moving forward. However, we are very aware of what that timetable looks like. We have just done it with the Hadley. We did it with Pine Street. We've done it with Michon. LDAs take a bit of time to negotiate. They don't happen overnight, and neither do buildings come down overnight. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Phelan. Ms. DiCillo, did you still wish to rise? Tanya, and then
Hi, Mary DiCillo, Precinct 4 Town Meeting Member. I'm having kind of a flashback tonight of the discussions around Greenwood Avenue. And that was town-owned property with the old high school, and was the high school, was the middle school that my kids went to. And as a town meeting, I was on town meeting then as well. Whoever was here there, we all voted. Whoever voted on that, we voted to sell. We voted to not make that a site for a building, but it lasted for 7 years, languishing for 7 years. And in 7 years of indecision and land court and I can't even remember all the details at this point, but my point here is it languished for 7 years. And it went from a building that had potential to be reused and renovated, perhaps for senior housing, perhaps for other town use, to not being able to be used and to be basically given away to a private developer. Now, one could argue, whatever, the benefits, cost benefits of all that long term. But the fact is, no action is an action. Mr. Patsios raised an important point, I think, tonight that I don't have the answer to because I know nothing about real estate. But once you give up, be careful what you give up in terms of setbacks, because if you footprints and all of that, if that building goes away prematurely, we may have second thoughts about having done that. The third thing was, we talk about delays. A public process is different than private process. And I think it's really, really hard to be on a public board to abide by open meeting laws and the constraints of public buildings and, all kinds of things. Those people, and many here probably haven't been in the public sector. That's just kind of the nature of it. And if you're expecting private process in a public sector, good luck. You can do it as fast as you can. I want to give credit to the committee that worked on this. I think that it was arduous. Hats off to them. Hats off to the select board. Unanimous vote, however they got to that I also, they're volunteers as well. Everybody here is a volunteer. And let's remember that when we're trying to debate this going forward. This is a tough vote, but I don't want to see a building that has the potential to just go dark and to ending like Greenwood Avenue. It really, I can't get that out of my mind. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chillo. I have, is that Ms. Zamora? Yes, and then Mr. Watson, and yes, Mr. Jarma.
Good morning, everybody. Andrea Moore, Precinct 3. When this discussion began, my first part of my brain went to what would a real estate investor do? Because the town is effectively a real estate investor in this property. We invested $7 million. And I've actually worked for several real estate investors. And the first thing they would do is they would find a short-term tenant to carry the carrying costs of the property. It has happened with every developer who I've worked with. So that's where my first part of my brain goes. I think the other thing I want folks to consider is I've heard a lot of assumptions thrown around tonight, assumptions about what some of the costs will be, assumptions about what accidents will happen on the property, assumptions about how quickly we can move, which Ms. Phelan alluded to. But I think what an RFP does allow us to do is it gives us actual information about the kind of businesses that want to take part in this parcel. We don't have to talk about hypotheticals anymore about who would actually pay money and what the makeup of this parcel could be. We will actually have businesses, who knows, it could be 1 or 5 or 12 people who say, we want a piece of this. And that now gives us an opportunity to start to build a patchwork of commercial businesses who want to spend money here. And I think that that's really valuable because from everything I can tell, we're just not quite ready to put that patchwork together, and it's going to take us time. If we didn't put out the RFP, we'd have to kind of be doing it a little bit artificially. I think the other thing to consider here is I want to get this project started more than anybody. I love moving fast on stuff and getting stuff done, but we also don't know what's happening with the green space. And I've heard the word green space thrown around a lot. The reality is I want a place to take my family, but we have a lot of green space at Linscott Park and at Town Hall. It's not like we're hurting for actual space. Those parks are almost completely vacant every time I take my children there. So we do have a place to bring them in the meantime while we are figuring out what is the right what are the right components to put in that open space that is a critical part of the Hawthorne parcel. And again, having some tenant in place paying all of the carrying costs will give us actual time, will give the select board time to re-engage with the community to figure out what should be there. Should it be a swing set? Is it totally open green space? Is it something different that we haven't considered yet? I know it looks like a long time because it's 6 years, but I really do think that it's important to make steady progress, but not rush this. And putting a tenant in place gives us actual information, gives us an opportunity to connect about what the green space is going to be comprised of, and does so without incurring a cost to the town for God knows how long. It's going to be more than a year, right? It's going to be more than a year. So do we really want to pay those carrying costs when we're having a hard time? So I would encourage everybody to vote in favor of Article 10.
Thank you, Ms. Amor. Mr. Watson, then Mr. Jerma, and then Ms. Atkin, and then next to, in front of Ms. Curry.
I want to clear up one thing. Mr. Patsios and Mr. Chillo mentioned the idea of if the restaurant comes down. And remember, we're not saying immediately, we're saying it might be 7, 8 months from now. But when it comes down in the context of a larger project, coordinated as the first step in a larger plan, there is no site plan that the reuse committee drew that envisions the restaurant staying there, or, more importantly, any building being built out there. So our committee didn't agree on everything, but we did agree on 4 or 5 very large concepts, and they aligned with the responses that we got from 550, citizens of the town through 2 public forums and many online filled out responses. There is, whatever plan somebody may like, whatever different plans the Hawthorne Committee drew, and we all had, slightly different favorites. None of them envision a building out at the water's edge, or even at this, call it the back half of the site, the back half meaning toward the water. So when the Hawthorne building comes down, if the Hawthorne building comes down, we aren't giving up any setback. We aren't losing rights to any particular setbacks, because any plan that comes forward after that won't need those setbacks. There is no plan that anybody, there is no plan that any person raised his hand about that proposed buildings that would require any setbacks from the side lot lines out at the back edge of the site or near the water's edge. What we heard debate about from the town was, how much green space is there, how much building development is there, and that's where you see that ebb and flow, back and forth. People will disagree about how much green space is adequate and how much building square footage is adequate. But there was, I can tell you, there was virtually no argument about where the buildings would go. However tall they are, however big they are, nobody was saying put them out in the half of the site near the water. So we don't have to worry about protecting any setbacks there. So that is not a worry. The other thing I would say is the Hawthorne Committee advanced the ball down the field. We came up with concepts, again, whichever plan you prefer. The plans that we brought forward to the select board have common themes. Again, I just mentioned 2 of them: green space toward the water, buildings toward the Humphrey Street side of the site, and also views. Our site plans protected, or created, I should say. There is no view now. The Hawthorne is there. But our plans, our favored plans, try to tried to create openings between buildings, or even in the case of the courtyard scheme, you've all seen probably G1, the courtyard scheme, a large view to the park beyond and to the ocean itself. So our plans respect sort of general themes. They still need to be looked at. They can still be adjusted. People will argue over, are they 2 stories, are they 3 stories? For sure. Some of that will get sorted out, or can get sorted out, in a really smart RFP process. So the last thing I would say is, some speakers have said, this can happen in a hurry, or it can't happen in a hurry. I mean, the reuse committee knows it has to unfold deliberately. It will take some months, but the advantage of defeating the article tonight is that the focus of the select board can be on, okay, let's start the months. Let's focus on having some discussions about what site plan is it that we think satisfies the town, and there'll be discussions about that. But at some point, maybe it's 3 months if the select board is really focused on it. I don't know, maybe it's 4 months. The select board is starting down the field a little bit here. They're not starting from scratch. Our committee did a lot of work, and we tried honestly to figure out, through input, what the townspeople were looking for, and not every member of our committee agreed with what the town was looking for, but we tried to reflect it nonetheless. So, yeah, the Hawthorne building would be empty during those months, but once the select board felt like it had a good handle on a plan that it seemed to like, it can come to town meeting. It's not inconceivable that the select board could do the thought process, not every single part of the process, but could come to the May 2026 town meeting with a concept plan to get approval. It doesn't mean the process is done. It is a cumbersome public process. I appreciate that. But why not come to the May 2026 town meeting with a plan that it asks the town meeting to support, and what the select board is able to complete prior to that town meeting is what they'll complete, and there'll still be things to complete after that. But this really focuses the select board, and it'll take the select board however long it takes. There is no magic, and the reuse committee isn't saying this thing has to happen in any particular amount of time. But why not start that process? And if the select board can decide that it will not preserve the Hawthorne building, that can actually accelerate, their focus and their work. And the last thing I'll say is, our committee debated. When we started in March of this year. Excuse me. Would you please give me the respect of not laughing, please? Okay. Okay.
Mr. Watson,
Okay.
I'd ask that you draw your remarks to a close.
Yeah. My last comment is the one thing that no town meeting member was asking for in 2022. Some people wanted the whole park. Some people wanted some development. But in 2022, a handful of town meeting members were saying, keep the restaurant, put a restaurant operator in there. That wasn't the desire of the 2022 town meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Watson. I had Mr. Germa, then Ms. Atkin, and Tania.
Chair Germa, Precinct 3. I'm speaking in support of Article 10. If you read this, this is not about retaining the building. This is about giving the select board the ability to actually do something. Now, if the RFPs don't come in, it doesn't matter if we've passed this or not. If an RFP comes in that we can use, we actually have a way that will most likely be less expensive, and getting back to the original idea brought out here, the town won't look derelict. We have had derelict buildings in this town. This is an option not to sit with derelict buildings. We have had Greenwood Avenue. 7 years. Hadley's going on 2 years, but it's moving in the right direction. But if that building were occupied, it would feel a little bit different than it feels right now. And we can go on with the General Glover sitting there, not town-owned, but part of the process. Derelict buildings do us no good if we don't simply pass this simple article to actually move this forward and keep it going. Then we don't have an option. The only option we have is that building being derelict. So please support this and let us go home.
Thank you, Mr. Jerma. I had Ms. Atkin, Ms. Banderwitz, then Mr. Perry.
Thank you. Barry Atkin, Precinct 6, Town Meeting Member. I'm a little confused. It doesn't seem to me that passing this means that we can't initially start an RFP process, unless I'm wrong. Passing this, it seems to me, gives more options, but I may be wrong. What I don't understand is if there's a concept of trying to use that space in the interim while an RFP is out there, who's managing that process? Who's managing what the space gets used for or who it gets used by? And is there any sense of who or what organizations might be interested in a temporary usage? Those are things that haven't come up.
I
in my mind.
appreciate the comment. Your vote tonight would put that in the hands of the Select Board. And Ms. Bandowitz. And Mr. Perry.
Tonia Bandrowitz, Precinct 4, Town Meeting Member, and I was also on the Hawthorne Reuse Committee. And I just want to mention that we did take a vote at the last meeting, before the Select Board was meeting, on this warrant article. And at the time, I didn't have all the information I have tonight. And I voted with the rest of the committee to oppose this warrant article. But I stand here tonight in favor of it. But I just, for the record, I do feel the building does have to come down at some point. I do think that the committee, the Select Board has to move quickly on coming up with a long-term solution. But what I'm hearing is that they do have a dual track here and that they do need time. And I can understand that because it takes time between figuring out, contracts, figuring out permitting, all of that. So having a building sit there idle for 2.5 years, I think is the wrong move for the town to make. And I also think that the town has to consider what it wants for the long term. Because a lot of things, I think people will oppose or support. For instance, do we want 3 stories there? Do we want residential there? Do we want to sell part of the property? These were all things that were discussed and are in the Hawthorne Reuse Committee's report. But I think people, and how much open space versus how much retail or how many buildings. These are all things that I would hope the town will have some time as a community to think about, look about, and give their opinion to the Select Board. So 2.5 years doesn't seem that long to me in this process to get it right. And so I'm I ask you to vote in favor of this warrant article. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Banderitz. Mr. Perry. Mr. Perry would move to call the question. Is there a second? Passage of this motion would close debate, and we would move directly to a vote on Ms. Phelan's motion. This requires a 2/3 vote. All those in favor? All those opposed? The motion carries unanimously. We now move directly to a vote on Ms. Phelan's motion to extend the right of the Select Board to lease, extend the use and lease of any portion of the town-owned property at 149 and 169 Humphrey Street. All those in favor of Ms. Phelan's motion? All those opposed? The motion carries. This now dispenses with the last of our articles. I would welcome a motion to dissolve this special town meeting. Is there a second? All in favor? All opposed? We are adjourned. Thank you, Darren.